So we'll continue with the same topic. Chair? Good. We'll continue the same topic as last week. Actually, they put it online. A lot of people liked it. Getting a lot of feedback on that chair. I guess these are two topics that people like. We spoke about Halchot Shabbat and Shalom Bayit last week. I guess it's the simple things that people like to be reminded all the time, right? So we're going to continue on in Peleo 8, where we left off last week. So it says, a lady that got blessed that she married somebody who's a Yirei Shamayim, who sits in Suran, who lives his life with the proper mindset. So she's for sure going to be very happy. She's going to respect him and love him. They're going to have a much better relationship. But it says, sometimes the lady might get stuck with somebody who's much more difficult. Might be more hardcore, we'll call it, more difficult to deal with. Not so respectful, not so decent. So a lot of times when a woman might marry a guy like that, she loses respect for him because of the way he behaves, the way he speaks. It's like a very despicable type of individual. He says, but even such a lady, even such a man, it says, wife has to respect her husband, even if she's married such a man. Why? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu is mizavik zivugim, and if that's the zivug that Hashem gave her that belongs to her, she has to respect him and love him for who he is. And she has to be smart about it also. It says, imagine a king. He took a viceroy, he took a second hand, he took like a right-hand man to himself. Even if this right-hand man is a crippled and he's scary and he's full of diseases, it wouldn't matter. You would have to respect him. He's the king's right-hand man. So if the wife has to look at her husband like that, because Baruch Hu chose this husband directly for you, he might be difficult to deal with, but this is what Hashem wanted you to deal with. This is the husband that Hashem wanted you to have. This is what Hashem wants you to deal with. This is what Hashem wanted you to fix within yourself with this individual. And therefore, mainly he says, even such a husband, a woman has to be very careful to respect. It says that you find a story in the Gemara, that a husband told her wife and told his wife to go and take 2 watermelons. She misunderstood him. She thought that he said, and he told her to go throw it and break it on the door. She thought there was like a story between a husband and a wife that had like a whole conversation. She misunderstood her husband. She thought that her husband told her, take 2 watermelons and go break it on the rabbi's head. She went to the rabbi, she took these watermelons, she threw it on him. Right? Why? Just to listen to the word of her husband to such an extent that the Gemara brings this story as a good example of a woman who listens to everything her husband says. Not like a servant, like a slave, but out of respect for her husband. That she respects her husband so much that whatever her husband says, that's what she does for him. Now, I'm not recommending, right, that you would do that in every scenario. Every relationship has to be, but every relationship should have a Rav also. I realized that when people come to me sometimes to discuss their relationships in Shalom Bayis, I realize that it's much easier to work with the couple and to help them understand each other and grow in their relationship when they have somebody that they both listen to. But if both of them are on their own and they do whatever they want and they don't care what anybody says, generally those are the type of people that are very hard to be able to guide them properly. Right? So therefore it says over here, there's ladies that sometimes are not so bright and not so smart. They fight with their husband about everything. Right? They want this, they want that, and if their husband doesn't do it, how come this one does and this one this and this one has it? Right? And he said it's stupid. It's something stupid to fight about. It's something stupid to make a big deal about. He says, why? He says, because if the husband doesn't have money, it's enough already that he's working hard and he can barely make it, and you're going now putting more pressure on him. You want to buy this, you want to buy that, you want to go here, you want to do this. Why are you putting so much pressure on your husband? He already is having a hard time financially, right? But a woman has to be smart. Sometimes when she put pressure on him, it'll make him feel worse, it'll put him down, and it'll create a tremendous negativity in the marriage. It says a woman needs to be smart. She needs to know how not to give her husband pain. She needs to tell her husband, even when it's difficult at work, or even when financial times are difficult, or his parnasa fell apart, she needs to tell him, he says, this is the proper hashkafa of the Torah. He needs to tell him, right, don't feel too bad. He says the Kadosh Baruch Hu will take care of us for the rest of our lives, just to be there for him and try to make him feel better about the situation, to fix the situation, to understand that their Shalom Bayit and the relationship comes before everything. This is an idea that sometimes people tend to forget, that this is a mitzvah of Shalom Bayit. Shalom Bayit is a mitzvah from the Torah, that a person has to have shalom in his house. A person has to have peace with his wife has to have peace with her husband. That's the number one focus that you should have in a marriage, before anything. Right? You have to know how to go about things in a way that it won't affect your Shalom Bayit. Right? If your wife wanted something, or you don't want something, whatever it might be, don't just go and do it and say, you know what, it'll ruin it. He says that what? She has to come and comfort him at a time of difficulty. Right? As it says, she has to tell him, don't worry, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll have our schar after 120. This world, what is this world? How long you live in this world for? It's not temporary. You come, you go. What do you need to go and kill yourself for this world? We'll be happy with what we have. She has to bring simcha to the house, bring love into the house, not to put more pressure on him. That's what a woman has to be. She has to have a good tongue to be able to know how to speak to her husband, to be able to comfort her husband at a difficult time. Sometimes the husband comes home at nighttime and he had a very difficult day at work, and he might be a little bit tense. A smart woman has to know how to bring the situation, to calm it down, to bring the house to a certain tranquility, to a certain peace, to talk nicely, to talk calmly, to be able to bring things at a peaceful level, to keep the house calm, right? Not to go and start reflecting off each other and creating more and more commotion until the whole house becomes upside down. He says sometimes the husband might be very wealthy, but he also might be very stingy. So even in such a case scenario, right, a woman has to also think to herself, okay, so her husband doesn't get her all this jewelry and so on and so forth. For this, she's going to go and start fighting with her husband. He has money, right? He himself drives a Mercedes and he gets her a 20-year-old Toyota, right? So he's a stingy guy. He buys himself a $2,000 suit. He buys his wife a $50 dress, whatever it might be, right? So a lady has to think to herself also, even if she got stuck with such an individual who might be stingy, so you have to follow the advice of Shlomo Melech. It says it's better to eat hard, stale bread, but to live peacefully, than to have a good dinner and to live in machloket. You can eat a nice steak, but if you're having machloket, it's tension, it's stress, it's not worth it. It's better to eat a piece of bread that's stale, but to live peacefully. You're calm, your heart is calm, your mind is calm. Don't make a big deal out of it. That's what he's trying to tell you. Nothing is kedai to make a big deal out of it. Every situation in life, as bad as it could seem, there is a way to be able to fix the situation without having to go on and make it into a big fight and to make it into a big machloket. He says, you find that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that even his name should be erased for the sake of Shalom Bayit. We find this by the Sotan, that Hashem's name should be erased for the sake of Shalom Bayit. Hashem didn't have to make that a Sotan that shall drink water that was the name of Hashem erased in there in order for it to be able to be tested. Hashem couldn't make it that you put the pasuk without Hashem's name in there. Why did Hashem make it that his name should be erased? To teach us this, that if Hashem erased his name for Shalom Bayit, even the more so, he said, how much do we have to be muchel, how much do we have to put our heads down, how much do we also have to erase our ga'avan in order to be able to keep the Shalom Bayit at home. Sometimes he says, a woman might look at her husband, he might look like he's making money, but it's just all an illusion. He just wants to pretend like he has something. Maybe he's embarrassed to tell her that he's not really making what she thinks that he's making, and maybe he can't afford all the things that she wants. But he doesn't want to tell her, he feels embarrassed telling her. Right? So sometimes she has to understand that also. She has to be very careful, right? Not to go and start making a big deal out of it and start making a fight out of it. He says sometimes also you have to know that when the husband comes home, he says, and she might be a little bit frustrated, he might be a little bit angry, he might start taking it all out on his wife. A woman has to realize that sometimes if a husband is coming home and he's frustrated, he's angry, he's starting to pick on things and starting to scream at this one and scream at that one and she has to understand that it's not her, it's not necessarily the home, it's not necessarily the children. It could be that he just had a very difficult day at work or something difficult happened to him throughout the day. She has to be able to be patient, to be able just to stay calm, let the situation play itself out, and let things calm itself down. Don't put don't put wood in the fire. You know, like they're saying, don't be quick to react. A woman shouldn't be quick to react. Thank you. Right? He says this is the general rule whenever a woman and a man get into an argument. The first one, how do you stop it? How does a person jump into it and stop it? The first one that's able to stay quiet. Stay quiet. Wait till things cool themselves down. Relax. Sometimes a day, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. Stay quiet. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to be the one to go and to get all defensive and start attacking as well. Sometimes after a few days when everything calms down, like the Rambam says, don't ever try to calm a person down when he's angry. If a person is angry, it's not the time to calm him down. It's not the time to talk to them. It's not the time to try to fix the situation. When people are angry, the more you try to fix it, the more you try to talk to it, the more it goes on the opposite extreme. It's a time where you're supposed to take a break, give them the space that they need, let them calm down. Once the whole situation is calmed down, then you can come and start talking to them and say, it was very not pleasant how you came home the other day, it was not nice how you were talking to everybody, but only when they're fully calm. Then you could start explaining to them how you didn't like what they were doing, right, and so on and so forth. Then they're much easier to accept what you say. Like it says, the words of the wise are accepted when you speak peacefully, when you speak nicely. It's all the tongue. You could say the same thing in two different ways. One way will be accepted, one way will be denied. It's all a matter of when you say it and how you say it. But general rule, don't ever try to calm down the situation at the time when everything is furious. Give it space, relax, don't answer, don't reply. Let everything calm down, and then you could come trying to fix the situation for the next time. Like it says, the person that's able to hold his mouth closed during the time of machloket, it says such an individual, the whole world stands on this person at that time. He brings such schus, such kiddushan to the world, that at that moment, if he was the only tzaddik in the world right now, the world would be able to stand in his zechut. That's how great it is that if a person is able to control his mouth at the time of machloket. Not to answer. Not to answer. He says, even if a woman got stuck with a man who's very difficult. Now, this is something very hard, right? If a woman got stuck with a man who's very difficult, right? He curses, he hits her, he's aggressive. She's very hard to be able to deal with him, right? He says something very interesting. You know what he says? He says she should deal with it, and there should be a kapara for her soul, and she should know she's going to get rewarded for all this in Olam Haba. But this perspective of a marriage is something for people that truly believe, like what we said before. He says that everything in this world that comes to a person is 100% designed for a person min hashamayim. That if a woman got stuck with such an individual, she has to also know that that's the particular husband that Hashem wanted her to have in order to fix her neshama, that she gets the karbara that she needs. Now, there's a limit to everything. There's a limit to everything. She doesn't just have to sit there and get... right, there's a limit to everything, but they should try to get help, they should try to get a Rav involved, they should try to be able to try to fix the situation, but patiently, right? Shouldn't just think right away, okay, this is the wrong one, let's get it out of the picture. It says an Eshet Chayil is a girl who's able to understand that everything that's happening to her in life is min hashamayim, and she shouldn't embarrass him and go out and start degrading him in public and start telling the family and start telling this one and telling that one. Why? Because it's only going to make it worse. Because once he's already like that, now you're making it public, it's going to fire him up even worse, he's going to destroy everything in the house even worse, it's going to be much harder to fix. It's going to be much harder to fix. He says, but what? Such a girl, she has to be smart. She has to go to Hashem, she has to daven to Hashem, she has to find the proper way to talk to him, the proper time to talk to him, until she's able to fix the situation slowly, slowly. She shouldn't just say, okay, my husband's some lunatic, some maniac, next, let's get rid of him, let's go find somebody else. Because why? Because if min hashamayim, such a husband is coming to her, even if she leaves one, she goes to the next, the suffering is going to come from somewhere else. If it's meant to come to her, it's going to come to her. Right? So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted her to have this particular type of a husband, she has to be able to figure out the situation to fix the marriage in the most peaceful and patient way. Now, all this is easier said than done. Everything in life is easier said than done. But that's the hashkafa that the Pele Yoetz gives. Right? That he says, we mentioned this plenty of times, all the Bali Muslim mentioned this, that a person's zivug is predetermined to him, min hashamayim, already from before he was born. And therefore, people, when people realize that they need to fix themselves and they need to work on themselves, that's already the beginning stage of achieving Shalom Bayit. The problem is that everybody thinks that the other person is the problem, not me. I'm perfect, he likes me, she's the problem. She thinks the other way around, I'm not the problem. I don't think he's the problem. Right? If everybody's going to think the other person is the problem, everybody's going to fix everybody, nobody's going to fix nobody, it's only going to be problems. Right? Every person has to understand, I'm the problem, I have to fix myself. If everybody fixes themselves, it'll fix everything after that. Every person has to accept upon himself to work on himself. Right? He says a lady, she has to daven for her husband, she has to daven for Shalom Bayis, she has to daven for her husband's spirituality, she has to be patient, she has to be able to know when to talk and how to talk. don't just, sometimes the husband might come home and the lady is flipping out. She's upset about this, upset about that. The kids drove her crazy all day, right? So a smart husband has to be able to calm the situation down. Don't scream at her. Look at your grandmother, your mother, how they used to take care of 20 kids. They used to cook chicken, fry, I don't know, they used to build houses, whatever they did in Samarkand, right? They can handle 25 different things at one time. One little thing, you're already getting nervous. You're not going to get anywhere by saying that. You're just going to make it worse. You're going to make the machloket worse. You're going to get her even more angry. And you know what's going to make it even worse? Because now she's going to think that you don't understand her. And when a wife thinks that the husband doesn't understand her, for her that's the end of the world. Because she's living with somebody that doesn't understand her, now it's going to be even harder. Now she's going to complain even more. Now she's going to be upset even more. Why? Because now she's going to constantly want more and more attention. But what's the psychology of it? You have to always say, yes, I understand. I'm sorry. You have to always make her feel like you understand her. She's right. It's difficult. Raising children not easy. You have to be patient. Be like they say, let her vent. Just cooperate. Why? When she feels like you understand, you're cooperating, and you let her just scream it all out, she'll calm down, and she understands that you understand, and she feels like somebody's on her side. It's different. Already it's a different game. That's already the beginning stages of building that harmony. But the more a wife feels like you don't understand her, the more she's going to complain, because what she really wants is just attention. She just really wants attention. The Steipler Rebbe says that the Steipler Rebbe is one of the biggest Bali Ruach HaKodesh, of Chaim Kanievsky's father. He says that if a husband doesn't show his wife a lot of love and affection and attention, and is not patient, and doesn't come home and hug her and kiss her and tell her how much he loves her every single day, it's like he's killing her, he says. Why? Because that's what a lady needs. A lady doesn't need, you have to be etukupil, tokupil, domsdale, right? This is nice, but this is not what a lady wants. This is what a man wants. This is how a man is satisfied. A woman is not satisfied by these things as much. Women need more emotional satisfaction. You need you to come home. They need you to tell them, I missed you. I was thinking about you in the morning. You need you to call them during the day, say, I'm thinking about you. To buy them something from the store to show that you care about them. This is what women need. You'll realize that once you start to give your wife proper attention, you give her compliments, you tell her how much you love her, how pretty she is all the time, even if sometimes you're not in the mood, right? If you constantly show positive attention, and you show her love and attention, and you help her out, and you do things to show her that you care about her, you go to the store, you know that she likes a certain type of a food, or a certain type of a chocolate, right? You buy it for her, give it to her, she sees you thinking about her, you'll be surprised that your wife will not complain. For some reason, she stopped complaining when you come home. For some reason, the food starts to taste better. She making breakfast and dinner. What happened? What happened is that she's getting emotionally satisfied. You're giving her what she needs emotionally. She's calm. She's able to handle life easier. And the fact that she sees you love her, she's going to show it back. She's going to reflect it back. But that's the type of love and attention the Chamim tell us that our wives need. They need emotional understanding. When they're coming to you and they're telling you that something is really bothering them, and then they don't want you to go and tell them advice. No, why is it bothering you? It's not a big deal. You're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. Stop complaining already. Just do it. They don't want to hear all this. They're not interested in all this. The more you're going to speak like that, the more they're going to continue and continue and continue. It's never going to stop. Why? They want you to understand them. They want you to connect to them. That's really what they want. And that's what the Pele Yoet says over here, that a woman and a wife and a husband's goal in the house has to be Shalom Bayit. They have to know that they have to live with Shalom Bayit. A husband has to understand a woman needs particular type of attention, and a woman needs to understand a husband needs particular type of attention. They don't necessarily both need the same thing. Women like to speak, women like to be heard, women like to be understood. Man like it when a woman cleans, cooks, they like different things. They both like different things, right? But both have to be patient to be able to understand each other. That's what it has to say. It brings over here, just to finish off a little bit of what we're talking about before we get to Halchot Shabbat. I saw that the Steipler Rebbe brings something very interesting, right? He says, how does a person have good chinuch at home? A person wants to raise his children to be good kids, right? Especially today's generation with the exposure that children have outside, it's a very big struggle. It's a very big test. You could raise your kid a whole entire way, suddenly he goes outside, is exposed to something else, and it becomes a whole, right? He says what? He says the chinuch yinadim, right? One, he says when the mother is mivater, that the mother sees the father doing something, but she doesn't reply. The children see that the parents are always living in Shalom Bayis. The children see that, Rav Avadia once said this, he said when the mother and father respect each other, the children will respect them. But if the mother and father do not respect each other, the children will not respect their parents either. When the children do not see respect between the parents, the children don't respect the parents either. So it says like this over here also, right? That when children see that the wife and husband live in harmony, they're not telling each other what to do, they're not screaming at each other, the children develop to become better children, and they also respect their parents, right? It says children that grow up in a house where the mother davens word for word, she davens every day word for word, those children have more siyata d'shmaya to understand Gemarot and Mishnayot in class. Step Rabbi says this. He says children that grow up in a house where the mother says every single bracha loud, quietly, word for word, those children have better midot and less chutzpah. Mother must say every bracha loud, word for word. The Step Rabbi says when the children get exposed to this, they develop better midot and less chutzpah. He says the lady that davens to Hashem every single day, her children have much more success in life than other children do. The parents daven, they pray for the children. The Step Rabbi said he used to daven for Rav Chaim Kanievsky until Rav Chaim Kanievsky is like 50 years old or something. He used to daven for him every single day. Right? He says that what? We just said this before, that children that grow up in a house where the mother and the father understand each other and they don't argue with each other in front of the children grow up with much more connection to Kedusha and much better midot than anywhere else. Yeah, it makes a very big effect on the children of how they see the parents. But if their parent is like a cat and dog all the time, the children also going to grow up like this wild, bashing a little bit. This is what they see at home, right? The children don't respect the parents because they don't see the respect each other, right? All this really stems in Shalom Bayis. So, we'll stop there for the Shalom Bayis. We're going to get to Halchot Shabbat. We were learning last week Halchot Borer, separating foods, right? So we're going to go on to continue on Halchot Borer. So we said that if you have two different species of things, for example, you have two different types of fishes that are overlapping each other, you cannot separate one from the next, not unless the one that you're taking is the one that you want to eat. For example, we said if you have white fish and you have salmon fish, and they designed them, they put them one over the next on a plate. Right now you don't want the white fish, you want to save it for Sudah Shishit. So you cannot just take out the white fish, put it for Sudah Shishit, and then eat the red fish. Why? Because we said that's borer. You cannot separate something you don't want from what you do want. It's an Issa Doraita. You're only allowed to separate now what you do want from what you don't want. And even then you have to eat it now. You can't take it now for later. Right? He says, however, if you have one type of a fish, and some pieces are bigger, some pieces are smaller, that's all considered like one species. That there's no borer. If you have, for example, salmon fish, right? And you have big pieces and small pieces. You want to take out all the small pieces and put it on the side so you can serve the big pieces. That's fine, because it's all one species. It's all cooked the same. It's all one species, all one plate. That's okay. Right? He says if you have green apples and red apples, is that considered two species or one species? So you have it mixed up in a bag and you want to take out all the green ones and you want to put it aside for later and you want to take out the red ones.
It's two different seeds, no? So it's different.
But they might be all one apple. It's all an apple. So he says he's not sure. The poskim are not sure over here. However, if one is very sour and very bitter that it's not easy to eat and the other one is easier to eat, then that's for sure it's considered two species. Okay, that's he says over here something very common. You have lettuce. In lettuce, you have sometimes some leaves are worse, some leaves are a little bit older, and some leaves are a little bit newer, right? So he says over here, the ones that are already rotten, the ones that are already bad, you can't take out all the bad ones from the bag and throw them in the garbage and then put all the good ones out on the table. But when you open up the bag, you see there's a mixture of bad and good, you can only take out the good ones, put them on the table, and the bad ones you leave in a bag and you can throw it out. But to take out the bad ones and throw them out, you're not allowed, right? You're not allowed. However, this is all talking about when the lettuce is already all taken off the stalk and they're all, say, in a bag or on a plate, so you just want to take out, say you put the lettuce on a plate and you see some bad ones, you take out the bad ones and you throw them out. You're not allowed to do that. However, if you have one stalk of lettuce and the outer layer is bad, and in order to get to the inner layer you need to take out the outer layer, that's fine. That's like peeling an egg. That the only way to get to the egg is by peeling the actual shell, that's fine. So to here also, if you have this lettuce, the stalk of lettuce, so you want to take off the outer layer, which are not so good because you want to get to the inner layer, that is also okay. He says sometimes you might have fruits or beans or something like that, and some of them are bad, right? Some of them are bad, right? And they're all mixed up, so you want to take out all the bad ones. For example, you open up a pack of blueberries, and you find like some moldy ones, right? And the rest of them are good. So you can't take out the moldy ones and just throw them out. You could just eat around it, take whatever you want. Because when you take out the moldy ones, throwing it out, you're separating bad from good. You're separating something you don't want from what you do want. So you're only allowed to take what you do want from what you don't want, and even then, it has to be on the condition of eating it now. You can't separate it for later. Fruits, you're allowed to peel fruits. You're allowed to peel fruits even with a peeler, right? Because why? When you're peeling an apple, for example, even if you're using a peeler, you're always peeling a piece of the apple with the skin. So you're really never separating. So therefore, peeling an apple would be okay, as long as you want to eat it now, right? However, if you want to peel orange peel, sometimes people don't want to eat the orange. They take the peel, and they peel the orange peel, thin, fine slices in order to make like a zest with it, put it into a salad to make a certain flavor, to put into a certain food. There you wouldn't be able to use the peeler, because the peeler is something special for peeling, for separating. There you would better to use a knife. Now, mutar livra ratzamot hadakim shel hadakim. Say you're eating fish, and you're eating fish, and inside you have fish, and you have bones inside the fish, right? This is a big machloket between Ashkenazim and Sephardim, right? The Ashkenazim, one of the main reasons why you find their fish has no bones, gefilte fish they eat. Why? One of the main reasons because of this, because they don't want to come into questions of separating bones from the fish, because Ashkenazim hold that if you take the bones and you separate it from the fish, you're going to be over Nisa d'Oraita. They hold that separating, that's why they hold that that's taking out something you don't want from what you do want. So what? Ashkenazim, if they eat fish with bones, they need to eat the fish and they need to take the bone out of their mouth. Sephardim, we don't hold like that. We all know that when you're eating a fish, taking the bones out while you're eating is the normal way of eating fish. It's not considered separating, right? So therefore we hold that any bone that's connected to the fish, you're allowed to separate before you put the fish in your mouth. Any bone that's already disconnected is just laying on top of the fish, there you're not allowed to take it off and separate it.
It's such a headache.
Why?
To know this also, to know this other one, then remembering it,
I tell you the truth. It sounds so complex, but when you're actually eating, you don't really feel it,
Why risk it? It's such a risk for something that you can easily avoid.
How?
Because if the bone is not attached to the fish, and if it's on you, and you separate, you get a sin. What do it's too much of a risk.
So you eat most of the fish that we eat is without bones anyways. It's usually scaled and bone. So Bukharins, they use whole fish, right? Use whole fish. So most of the bones a lot of the times are very connected. You really have to take them out, disconnect them. Sometimes you might find a bone here and there that's on the fish. There you just avoid it by eating the fish. But you have to know the halachas, you're right. Anything is like that. All Halchot Shabbat is like that, right? All of Halchot Shabbat is like that, right? It says, so we said you're not allowed to separate. You're only allowed to separate to eat whatever you want from what you don't want, but you also have to eat it now. He says, what about if I separated something that I want? Right? Say, for example, I have 2 layers of fish on top of each other. I want the red fish, so I separated all the red fish. I want to eat it. And then after I separated it, I wanted to eat it for this meal, for the lunchtime, let's say. Then I changed my mind. I say, you know what, I'm going to save it for Sudash Tashid. So there is a machloket also. If I separated it with the intention of eating it now, but then I decided I want to eat it later, did you make an isur or not? Because if I would separate it to eat it later, and that would be an isur d'oraita. If I'm separating it to eat it now, it's mutar. What if I'm separating it to eat it now, and then I change my mind to save it for later? Is there an isur d'rabanan there or not? So there's machloket. Some say there's an isur d'rabanan, some say there's no isur at all. Why? Because when you first separated, your intention was to eat it now. So then you didn't end up eating it, right? You saved it for later. For sure, if you ate some of it, that's fine. We're talking about you didn't eat anything. You just saved it completely for later. Then already there's a machloket. Now, watermelon. Are you allowed to take the seeds out of watermelon? Right? You're eating watermelon, you want to take out the seeds. So it says over here, it says when you're eating watermelon, you take out the seeds, it's more of the normal way of eating, of flicking the seeds out. Meaning to say, the Ben Ish Chai says you take the watermelon, if there's like too many seeds, you just flick it off, right? And whatever ones you have in there, he says you hit it off with your pinky. Do it b'shinui. Hit it off with your pinky and then you can eat it. But most people, they just eat it like this. You don't have today watermelon with so much seeds. Most of the watermelons today either don't have seeds or they have very little seeds. I'm not so sure how they make that if they don't have seeds. I have no idea. It's very interesting how they make it. Like, the normal ones that grow have seeds. How do they make it that it grows without seeds? It's very interesting. Right? How they make it grow without seeds. Right? Also, if you have melon, sometimes you cut open a melon, there's a whole bunch of seeds in there. You're allowed to take all of that out and throw it out. Why? Because the only way to eat the melon, the only way to get to it is by taking out all the seeds. Otherwise, you can't get to it. So anytime the only way to eat something is to be able to take something else away or take something else out, that's permissible. Right? That is permissible. right? So dates we spoke about last week, right? We spoke about dates last week. Say if a person has a little fly, say a person has a drink, and a little fly fell into the drink. So most people, I don't know, I'm assuming most people won't drink it anymore, right? But there are some people that don't care. Some people that'll just take out the fly with a spoon and they'll just drink it. No? No, there's no people.
Flies rest on carcasses, they rest on the door.
So some people don't think so far. They just take it out and they drink it. I agree with you, but if it actually went in, or a person found like a dead mosquito in his coffee or something like that, you can't just take it out and separate it. You have to take out some of the coffee with it a little bit and spill it out. What? Everybody's different. You'll be surprised. I've seen people do interesting things before. Right? I don't want to speak about it. I've seen people do weird things before, like who does these type of things? Some people, they're just mentally very different. Right? So, right, it says fruits and vegetables, all different types of foods that are all piled up on each other. For example, you have a basket of fruits. A whole bunch of fruits are on top of each other. So we said you can only take what you want from what you don't want. But what about if what I want is, say, an orange, and the orange is all the way on the bottom. In order for me to get to the orange, I need to take away everything here. He says that's okay. Why? If the only way for you to get to the food that's on the bottom is by moving the food that's on the top, that's okay. Right? That's fine. You're allowed to separate everything in order to be able to get to where you want to get to. Right? It says over here, also, the isur of separating, we'll just do like 2-3 more halachot. The isur of separating is only when your mind, your intention is to separate. But if your intention is not to separate, you are not over the isur of separating. For example, right? If you have a box of blueberries, right? And you find a few bad ones, you take them out and you throw them out. Right? That's asur. Because there you're taking out the bad ones, you're throwing them out, you're separating. He says, however, if I have blueberries and I take one to eat, and after I take it I realize it's no good, well, now I have to eat it? Then I'm allowed to throw it out. Why? Because my first intention was just to grab a blueberry and eat it. I had no intention of separating. I thought it was a good one. When I picked it up, I saw it wasn't good. Right? Whatever, it was very soft, or it was mold on it, whatever it might be, then you're allowed to throw it out.
But if you have guests and you want to make sure that you have good blueberries,
you have to make sure that you separate it before Shabbat.
sometimes you do it in a rush. All of a sudden, somebody comes over. Okay, let me take the blueberries out of the fridge.
Just put everything on a platter and give it to them. You're not going to give them blueberries that half of them are moldy. No, probably 1 or 2 that are in there. Whoever will be there, they'll take it, they'll look at it, put it aside. What are you going to do?
You don't make this.
Right, what are you going to do? Or cherries. But I think blueberries are more subject to becoming like, right? Cherries, I think they usually stay fresh longer. Right? Okay. We'll do one more halakha. A person that eats grapes from a cluster of grapes. Right? You have a cluster of grapes, and some of them are already bad. They're in your fridge ready for a week and a half. You forgot they existed, and you found them now on Shabbat. Right? You want to eat them. So it says, only take the ones you want to eat. Don't say, oh, what is this? Now take out all the bad ones, throw in the garbage, and put the good ones on the table. That you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to separate all the bad ones and throw them out. You can only take whatever you want from whatever you don't want. Remember that. What about if you take an apple? We'll do one more actually. What about if you take an apple and you see a part of the apple is no good, right? So then you're allowed to cut that part of the apple off, because you're also always going to cut a little bit of the good part of the apple off also. So we said before, whenever you're separating 2 different species, you're taking what you don't want from what you do want. If you're taking a part of what you do want also in the mixture, for example, if you have osvo, right, in front of you, and you squeeze lemon on it, and you have a lemon peel that fell inside of it. So we said you take out the lemon peel, not the lemon peel, the lemon seed fell inside of it. You want to take it out to throw it out, it's asur doraita, we said. Right? It's asur. You're not allowed. Because you're taking out something you don't want from the mixture and throwing it out. However, if you're taking from the whole mixture with the lemon seed, it's okay. What do I mean by that? If I take a spoon, I take out everything in the osvo also, like a full spoon of osvo with the lemon seed. I didn't separate anything because I took the whole mixture is here. I didn't just separate a particular item. Then you're allowed to.
Chicken skin. I won't eat chicken.
Chicken skin, they say that there's no bora.
No what? No
There's
bora?
no bora. They hold that you're taking it off, that's a normal way of eating by chicken skin.
Says different.
There, yeah, I've seen, but I think the Ravajah says by chicken skin is okay. Taking off the chicken skin is okay. Yeah, you could take off the chicken skin. As far as I remember, that's what I understood. Why? Yeah, there are differences of opinion. What are you gonna do? There are differences of opinion. We once spoke about why there's differences of opinion. We'll do one more halakha. If you have leben, what is this? Yogurt, right? And you open the yogurt, and the whole top of the yogurt is full of water, and on the bottom is all the yogurt. You want to spill out all the water in order to be able to eat the yogurt. You're not allowed to do that. Right? Well, you can mix it. Of course, you can mix it. Yeah. However, you're allowed to spill it out with a little bit of the yogurt with it. While you're spilling it out, take a little bit of yogurt and spill it out with it. So this way, you're spilling out with the mixture, with the actual water. You're not separating one entity from the next. You're taking with the entity that's inside, which is the yogurt, you're spilling it out with the water. So you never separated one entity from the next. I don't know if that's not. I don't know. I've never paid attention by spilling it out to be able to tell you. I don't really eat these type of things.
What about compote that has liquid and fruits?
What about it?
A pitcher that separates fruits from liquid.
Oh, so then we'll get into that. So if you want, I'll speak about what he just said, right? But let's just finish off this halacha. He says that if you have a can of pickles, right, or a can of corn, or a can of anything, right? So what you want to do, you want to open it, spill out all the liquid, and then pour the pickles into a different plate. Now to do that. What you have to do? What do you have to do? He says over here, right? You have to take out whatever you want and put it. You have to take out whatever you want and put it on. Take the pickles out like this, a few at a time, one by one, and put it on a plate. Don't spill out all the water and then take out the pickles from the can. You understand what I just said? Right. Now we'll get to your question. What was your question? You just asked me something before.
No, I was saying about the yogurt.
Not the yogurt. You asked me a question before. I forgot you. The compote, right? So compote. Yeah. So I'm gonna discuss two questions in one already. So you have a choinik, another choinik, whatever. What is that called? The choinik? Pitcher with the tea inside. Choinik, right? Has a strainer inside. Or you have compote, right? You only take out the actual juice and liquid. You don't want the fruits to come out. So we're gonna answer both the questions the same way, right? So there, you're allowed to use it, but you have to make sure that you don't fully empty it. That you're always going to leave a lot of the liquid inside, that there's always going to be a mixture of liquid and fruits, or always going to be a mixture of and tea leaves left into the choinik or the pitcher, whatever it might be. But if you empty out the whole thing inside, then that's considered separating. Drink it, and whatever comes in your mouth, you throw it out. What do you mean on top?
In the pot, it's separated, the strainer is there.
What do you mean? Talk. What do you explain? Yeah.
Ziloni chai is there.
Yeah.
Leaves that you don't like.
Okay.
On top.
On top of where? In the cup?
In the cup.
In the cup. So you have to take out a spoon, with the tea, take out the tea leaves and throw it out. Don't take it out like this. With the tea, you have to take it out. Why? Because you can't separate one entity from the next. But when you're separating one entity from the next, if you're taking from the other entity, that's okay. Because then you're not separating, you're taking from the whole mixture. But when you're just taking out the tea leaves, you have a problem. Same thing would happen with a tea bag. You can't just take a tea bag out of the tea and throw it out. You got to take a spoon, pick up the tea bag with a little bit liquid, and throw it out.
So when we make tea over here, and we go like this, we cannot take the tea.
No, you got to take it out with the spoon with a little bit of the tea.
How many times you did this? I'm going to put half the...
I know in Bet Gavriel, I think they put like a sign over there in the kitchen, how to make tea, how to make coffee on Shabbat. You ever see that before? I was surprised when I went to the kitchen and I saw it. It's very nice. So they should make it here. So people should know what to cook, how not to cook, when is the cooking, when is it bora. Maybe like a little sign of how to do it. Anybody want to say Kaddish? Want to say Kaddish? Rabbi Chanan ben Akasham. Huh? You'll say it and then whatever. Rabbi Chanan ben Akasham 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 ben